Okay, good evening and welcome to the Village Board of Trustees Workshop Meeting. Today is Monday, August 31st. It is now 7 p.m. Please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please let us remain standing and think about our servicemen and women serving this great country here and abroad. Thank you. You may have a seat. Okay. Okay, the next regular board, let's have a roll call vote, please. Trustee Paul Girard.
Here.
Trustee Joe Meegan-Corrigan.
Present.
Trustee Steve Alpert.
Present.
Trustee Charles Barone.
Present.
And also present, I see Robert Magrino, the village attorney. Treasurer Michael Genito. And is Mr. Glickel with us today?
He just joined us. I'm going to get him on board here, Mayor.
Okay.
And Mayor, just so you know, Messrs. Bernstein and Rottenberg are also online.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so the next upcoming meeting, the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees will be held on Tuesday, September 8th. Please note the meeting was rescheduled from Monday, the 7th, due to Labor Day holiday. And the next workshop meeting is scheduled for Monday, September 28th at 7 p.m. And also note Village Board workshop meetings will now be held on the last Monday of the month.
Is September 28th a holiday?
Oh, September 28th may be a holiday. You're right.
It is actually.
It is a holiday.
It's a holiday. Actually, clarify. It's a holiday during the day, but not at sundown for those who celebrate.
So the meeting is before sundown. So would we like to reschedule the meeting?
Oh, the meeting is after sundown, isn't it?
No.
Sundown.
Well, Rob, can you make a Tuesday meeting?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I can do the 29th that week.
Okay, so let's do that to make everyone more comfortable.
Is everyone okay with Tuesday, the 29th?
Yes.
Yes.
Paul, you good?
Yeah.
And Steve?
I'll make it work.
Okay, so we'll change the workshop meeting for Tuesday, until Tuesday, September 29th at 7 p.m. Okay, next on the agenda is the informal presentation by Sam Rottenberg and Robert Bernstein representing Le Chocolat.
Okay, Mayor, I'm going to get them both connected for us at the moment. Just give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, gentlemen, you should both be on now.
Okay.
You just saw a chipmunk.
Hello.
Okay, is Mr. Rottenberg on?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you turn his camera on? Here we go.
Yes. Yes.
Hello, Mr. Bernstein and Mr. Rottenberg.
Hi.
Good evening.
Hi. This is Sam, the Wonka chocolate guy. I would like to represent. I was speaking already, not to the board, where they told us to represent it to the board. What I really want to do is ask this one Ramapo where I make my chocolate is an M zone, and I would like, I'm getting tight in space and I need more warehouse space. I would like to represent with Robert Bernstein, my architect, that we would like to build up 3 stories on each building. So, which Robert will explain exactly that it's going to be, the 3rd floor will be one big warehouse. And it's going to, in my view, it will definitely be creating jobs for people that I will need as we getting, thank God. I'm wishing everybody business should go good. And I have a vision of you to go in to make my factory a little bit bigger. And onto the left side of the wing, we would like to, where it's to West Park, and we would like to make as it's a deep, as like the right side goes down to the ball field. The same thing, there's a wall over there, and build a garage, which will be which I hope it's going to be in the interest to sublease it, if the village would like to like 135 cars, if Robert understands good.
Mhm.
And also it should be a parking lot for ball playing in the months that is going on, a lot of chaos with the parking downstairs. So I would like that Robert should take over what I would like to represent for the village, for the board.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. I'm hoping that you have the renderings and the outline in front of you. If not, I can try to share on the screen what we want to do here. So right now, the existing building on Ramapo Road is a 1-story building, which is approximately 10,000 square feet. And then behind it, because of the grade, there's also a 1-story building, but it's more on a basement level. I think the best way to show it is the rendering where it shows from, I guess, the corner of Ramapo Road when it bends to the left. So it's from the right corner of the building that shows what Mr. Rottenberg, yes, that one, what Mr. Rottenberg is looking to do. So for the first part, in the front building, which is located on Ramapo Road, we came up with the idea of putting in small retail stores. Not a store such as a shop, but we're talking about like a Starbucks, a lunch store, stores where if commuters are going to work or coming home from work, they don't have to go all the way into town. They can have a place right across the street from the parking area that they can go to and purchase beverages or whatever they need. So the idea is small retail stores on that first floor. The building is so deep that these stores would only go part way back. The rest of the building on that first story would remain warehouse space for Mr. Rottenberg. What he wants to do after that is above that is add 2 more levels. 1 level for him, for his manufacturing, and then the top level for offices that could be used for rentals. Basically, in the back of the building, existing is a 1-story warehouse of almost 15,000 square feet. And he wants to do 2 stories over that building also. Because it's dropped so much, that's why you could see in this rendering is the best rendering for it, that we're not going to level the building, just level the 2nd floor, the 2nd and 3rd floor for the back. That's how steep it goes. So 1 level in the basement or the lowest level for manufacturing, 1 level for him. He's still
For a second.
and then the 3rd floor for each part for offices.
Can I pause you for a second?
Sure.
I'm looking at these pictures, but the public can't see them. Is there any way that the screen, I'm looking at a screen. Ah, that is beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that wasn't me, so. Okay, so this is looking from the left side, but also, so in the front of the building, this is what we're looking to do. And right now, the building is split. The right side where you have 3 stories, you can see has retail on the 1st floor and then the 2nd and 3rd. The left side is something we're going to talk about in a second, which is the parking that Mr. Rottenberg is looking to do as part of this building project. I mean, basically, what I just laid out for the building portion is what he'd like to do. He needs manufacturing on 2 levels and then offices for rental on the 3rd for both parts and retail in the front. Right now, it's a block building. It's got brick on the outside. There's no glass. There's no aesthetics to it. We want to do something that the town, and again, these renderings can change if you want a different look. We could definitely work with the village on it. But so what we're thinking is to do some nice retail, make it a little bit aesthetically pleasing, but it's right across from the train station. So that leads me to the second part of the project is the garage next to it and the way this would work. Right now, he owns this piece of property which has his house on it, and there's some parking along the street that we can pull into spots on the side street. What he'd like to do is basically provide at least 2 levels in the parking garage below grade. Because the grade is so steep towards the back, obviously it would take a lot to remove around the exterior portion, drop it down, come in from the side street into the garage, and then circle up or down from there. I do want to say, because this came up in the last meeting, that one of the renderings, the one that's over the top of the buildings, looking at a side road with the ball field in the back, these concepts, there were a number of concepts were done. This is one of the concepts of maybe working with the village to create a secondary entrance from the other side. But we're not looking at that now because that's, I believe that area belongs to DPW. So the renderings are really for the building right now itself to see if the village, if this is something the village would consider. And if they will consider it, then we can move to the next level. And we know we have a lot of work to do for it.
Yes. Can I speak for a minute? Hello?
Yes, of course.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
What I would like to say, I mean, everybody hopes that the business will go back as normal. As I was here the last 3 years, there was, I was speaking to people around here that they told me that by the parking by the train station, they can get a permit for 6 months. It takes them 6 months to get a permit. So, and to walk down when it's icy conditions, I mean, and there's a couple of people told me that a lot of people are going to the next town, Tuxedo or Mawa, to park. I mean, yes, it would definitely boost such to have such a parking near the train station so people can hop up and bring some, especially when you see the 5-story building, the Sullivan building, which I think it's called the Sullivan building, which people, I was thinking, could use some office space in the 3rd floor of that building, which could boost business right here in the village of Suffern. And again, this is only, like Robert said, if the village feels that it will be a great idea for the village of Suffern. Right now, I would say that I would need 1 floor to park. Like if I have now 12 cars, 13 cars, I would need probably 20. But again, the main thing what we and Robert are here is really to build a nice building that, and hopefully as everybody should, we should all be together and create some jobs, and hopefully I will be able to create some jobs.
All right. Well, thank you. I just want to bring to your attention, I'm sure you're aware of it, or at least the board needs to be aware of that this zoning here is in the manufacturing zoning, and there is no zone that permits these proposed uses in office space, retail, store, personal services, production, packaging, warehousing, and private parking facility. The only zone that allows any type of parking facility is the GB, and that is public parking facility owned and operated by the village. The only private parking garage is located at 92 Blauvelt Way, 3 Cross Street and 35 Park, and these are for required tenant parking. So those are the challenges that lie before us. So it appears that the applicant would require creating a new zone or amending the M zone to permit these uses. So that's the considerations that the board needs to take into. Charles, I think you're speaking, but you're muted. There you go.
This is not a residential building, correct?
Correct.
Business, office, retail, and parking.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you.
So the idea for tonight's meeting was to present the concept. Mr. Rottenberg and I have talked about that. We know we have a little bit of a road ahead of us to get to the next step, where we know we have to go through zoning issues, planning board issues, a lot of issues that would need to be resolved. What our idea for tonight was to present it and say, okay, if this is something that the village would consider, then Mr. Rottenberg is willing to take it to that next level.
Okay, does the board have any comment?
Well, I have a little parking concern. As far as, you know, we're kind of, the village more or less maintains all the parking. And we also control what our residents are being charged. And I don't know how many parking spots are actually going to be assigned, because it's 2 floors, if I understood you.
We're looking for, yeah, there's one on the street level, there's one above the street level, and at least one, if not 2. Mr. Rottenberg would like to have 2 levels below ground, because he wants to take part of the space. And also the entrance to the garage is not set. We would have to work with the zoning and planning board to work out all the logistics that would have to go into this.
We would also need to look at traffic.
How many cars would you plan on being able to park on the site in all these different levels? The total amount.
I'd like to think 80 to 120.
Oh, that's a lot of cars.
But again, it also depends on how much parking the village, you know, if the village comes back and says, listen, we only want 50 parking spaces, then we don't have to dig down 2 stories. If you come back and say, you know what, we want 60 or 70, we can, you know, that's why we're here, because we just want to get a feel. But if it's something that you would entertain, then, you know, maybe we don't have the top level. Maybe we only go underneath. It all depends on.
But if you go underneath, do you have to blast?
No. It's so deep downstairs. It's like almost 2.5 stories, and then it's going to be leveled with the road. And I would like to add also, in the time that there's the ball field open. I mean, it's really scary how people park and back up the cars and all the kids around. I mean, it would definitely be on a Sunday or available for them, for the residents, for the ball playing or whatever, if the village decides, I mean, to use them for safety and other purposes.
What would the other purpose be for the parking? Other than the ball field?
The other purpose for the parking is that I'm ready to work it out with the village, sublease it to the village. Should it be a revenue for the village? Should the village decide how much to make the charge? If somebody wants to park near the train, next to hop up to the train.
So your primary is to sublease the additional parking to the village.
Correct. And should it be controlled by the village? I mean, control means in fairs, whatever it's thinkable. For myself, I think that 25 parkings will be over enough for me, and as it's most warehouse.
Okay. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Is the flow of traffic depicted accurately in the renderings? I think you have it going around the ball fields. I mean, currently the DPW's back there, the wastewater treatment plant's back there. I mean, how do you envision the flow of traffic out of the garages?
Robert?
So, yeah, that's one thing that we haven't studied yet. We would definitely need a traffic engineer as part of the team to look at that. We'd also have to work with the planning board. You know, they may want an entrance from Ramapo Avenue in and then an entrance going out from the side. They may not want any entrances on Ramapo.
Robert, I think you have a narrative how we're going to go in from West Park. So
yes, but again, it also depends on how the planning board wants to work it. They may have another idea. So yeah, the narrative indicates, and the entrance you can see on the side, but if the planning board comes back and says, or the village comes back and says, you know, we don't want to burden that side street, we'd have to work with the traffic engineer and we'd have to work with the village to come up with ingress and egress.
Do you want to show? You want to show the narrative how the things go out?
Well, so the way we actually were trying to get out of the garage, if you go to the rendering, let's see if I have it. I don't think we have the rendering from the back, but one of the ideas was if we can get the garage to go down to the basement level for the back portion of the building, and between the ball field and the building itself is we can have a way in or out of the building through the back driveway, something to consider. But again, that is something that we'd have to work with the village and the planning board on to see whether it can be just one way, whether you want it to go in or out. But having that gives the people who are going to use the ball field the ability to walk out or drive out on that side of the building.
Okay, and what about parking for the retail outlets? So where are you envisioning that? Is that, I wouldn't imagine you would use the indoor parking for people to stop and, you know, stop and get, I don't know, pizza on the way home or something like that. So are you envisioning parking on Ramapo Avenue?
There is now a 2-hour parking on the street right now. But again, it could be meterized or only 1 hour parking, or you should just hop in and hop on the train or to get something. Or when they park the car, they can come out and have something to grab.
In the rendering that's shown, I'm just going to make sure I understand it. The parking that's street level across the street from the building, that's part of the existing train station parking in this rendering. Is that correct?
Yeah, it may not be 100% accurate, but yes, it depicts the parking across the street at the train
I
station.
make sure I'm following the drawing correctly. Thank you. It's a little rough, so I wasn't sure. Oh, you're muted.
So
You're muted.
do you have any flooding going on? Because that's part of our floodplain in that area. Do you guys ever flood out?
Well, my understanding is before I moved in, I was getting that the state and the village were putting in that road a couple $1 million for flooding. I didn't have any flooding zone on my side. I see a drop of flooding in the field, in the right side ball field, but it takes a couple hours, it goes down. On the left side, thank God I didn't have that. I know by Sandy there was. The river were over I think the Mawa River or some kind of river was overflowing, and I think that was putting in my understanding, the state put in, or the village put in a lot of dollar amounts to protect that. So in my last 3 years, it was very quiet.
Well, thank goodness for that. But I do believe, because I was back on the board when we had Irene, which really did the damage on flooding Sandy. We had more of a windstorm situation, not so much flooding. And definitely Rainbow was underwater. So I don't know that if parking underneath is sound for, we'll have to look at that, obviously. But that building definitely flooded. I was part of their package in helping them work with FEMA on the flooding.
It's correct. The back building that's one story right now was flooded, and the second and third floor on the Ramapo side wasn't flooded. As my understanding, and plus this garage, I think we are not planning. It's not going to be like a inside building with steam, or it's just going to be like a open garage with just brick. I guess flooding shouldn't do anything, but we're all hoping that we shouldn't be in flooding.
We will definitely have to review that. It may be a possibility of raising the garage up. I mean, the levels of the garage are not set. So for the exercise, we might have to raise the garage 3 feet higher than the basement level. But we're not at that point yet. And also we would have to do a lot of borings on this property to see, you were asking before about the possibility of blasting. We would have to do borings anyway, because we wouldn't do an undertaking like this unless we knew what the ground is underneath.
You know what would be desirable too, looking at the renderings, if possible. I know we have the existing building there, but if we had larger sidewalks and more green space along Ramapo Avenue, if you had some type of retail or dining establishments that would be able to utilize more sidewalk space. I think that the sidewalks aren't too wide there on Ramapo. Just an idea.
We can, it would mean, if I understand, are you looking to set the first floor or the building back a few more feet, or maybe the parking garage back a few more feet to make it more open there? Because it's existing, so it might be difficult to rebuild the front of the building.
Right, but the parking lot area, you could push, no, is the whole,
Yeah.
you could push that.
Definitely push that. Yes.
Well, I do think that maybe we should have our planning board look at this just to see, we wouldn't want to take you down a path, and maybe the planning board should review some of these plans to see what kind of their thoughts are. Rob, does that sound like that would be a good plan to do? You're muted, Rob. Nope, can't hear you.
Rob?
I mean, are you talking about me, Rob? Or
Magrino.
Rob Magrino.
Okay.
He's having a hard time with his audio.
I mean, I can answer the question because we did present the project already. They wanted us to come to you first. And then we're going to go, if you as a board say, you know what, we want to see the next step. If it's something you might consider doing, then we would go through doing more preliminary site plans. I would push the building back for the garage a little bit more to give you some more sidewalk space, and then we can present it to the planning board informally.
So we would have to just, as a board, discuss the possibility of pursuing the zone change or changing the M zone to include these specific zoning requirements.
Yeah, that's really why we're here tonight. We wanted you to get a look at what we were thinking about doing. And if we can get your blessing, then we can move on. If you say, you know what, the village is not considering it at this time, then we don't take it to the next level. We wait until the village says, you know what, okay, now we're ready for it, and then we can move on.
I believe that, I would speak for myself and say that we would have to I would have to digest it a little bit more, reread the narrative, review the plans again, look a little more closely at the zoning requirements that are in place, and discuss that with the building department. That's what I would say.
That's totally fine.
I don't know if the board and any of the other board members have any comments.
I like that. I like that approach. And two, we can talk to Rob because unfortunately he
can't
is,
talk to us.
yeah.
It would be good to understand your assumptions on, well, I guess, I don't know how many trucks you have going in and out now, but post expansion, what degree of truck traffic you envision with your operation expanding?
Basically on trucks, very low. We have 2 vans and a truck, not going every day out. I would say 5 times a month. And basically we have like 2-3 deliveries each day. That's in my vision. It's not like people picking up or customers are picking up. It's mainly we do the deliveries. UPS, there's FedEx, and there's very little picking up. It's like we deliver most of our stores right now.
The larger truck is the tractor trailer, is that correct?
Correct.
And that transits Ramapo Avenue.
Yes.
That doesn't go under the overpass.
Right. It comes from the 17. They're coming from the 17, and they drop off the pallet or 2, and they leave.
Right.
We don't get really truckloads. We get some chocolate once a month, 10, 12 pallets. And it's going to be probably, I'm not going to say that if we get bigger, we're not going to get another 3 truckloads.
Right.
But that's, and the plan is also that should be a truckload on the curb on the top level of the garage. That means circling West Park. So the warehouse should be on the 3rd floor.
And when those truckloads wouldn't come on like in the evening or a Saturday or a Sunday when the children are down there playing ball.
There is again if we make that third floor, the truck should go in from West Park and just back in on the top level of the parking, which is going to be separate entrance for the truck, for a garage over there if you see it on the renderings. And on Sunday, on a Saturday, barely that we're getting a delivery. I don't think we're getting a delivery on a Sunday. Just my truck is, my 2 vans or truck will go out over there and delivery, which my trucks are getting loaded at night, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. They take them home and they leave from home. So again, it should happen that my truck could come in. I'm not going to say that it's never going to happen, but very little. In my chocolate manufacturing, it's very little trucks traffic. But hopefully, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can I interrupt? I'm here.
Yep, there you go. You're on, Mr. Magrino.
Finally figured it out. Just procedurally, Mayor, I think you hit the nail on the head, and as did Joe. I think they've made the presentation. If the board is interested in going further, needs obviously more information. It needs, most significantly, would be a zone change. So that's why this board, it's really up to this board to make a determination. Certainly, based upon what you have tonight, I wouldn't say that you have enough to go ahead and make that recommendation, but for the applicant, what I might recommend is if they want to set up maybe a meeting with myself and the mayor and another board member, and perhaps the village planner. Frankly, if you want the zone change, and again, I understand Mr. Rodberg, once before he invests significant funds into this, wants an idea if the board is going to go for it. Frankly, a zone change of this nature, typically the applicant comes in with a proposed zone, similar to the way the Sheldon did it. If you recall, that applicant came in, had a proposed law. So those are issues that we could discuss perhaps offline. This is more to kind of have a presentation to the board as a whole so they can see it, the public can see it, and then we can kind of talk and see what the feeling is of the board, what the feeling is of the applicant, and the village's planner for some ideas as well. So, that's the suggested route I would take for now.
Yeah, and we also, there's also the public that we're going to have weigh in on this, because that's a pretty residential area. I mean, not exactly where the, where the train station is and where your business is, but it's got a lot of neighborhoods over there.
That would go hand in hand with the zone change.
Yeah.
Right, there'd be public hearing. We're not even at that level yet. We don't have anything, for them to look at, but absolutely the public would be involved.
Yes.
And again, this presentation has happened, and at some point the public can comment on what occurred tonight even.
I'm very-
A project
very-
like this, as proposed, obviously would affect the property value considerably, yes? So there would be probably a greater opportunity to collect tax revenue if this was built as planned, I would think, yes?
Sure, I'm sure it would increase the property tax revenue. Yes. Okay, I think the board needs to digest it, and like as Mr. Magrino stated, let's set up another meeting and just, and then we'll discuss it one-on-one individually, and we'll see what the board, how the board would like to proceed.
Mr. Rottenberg, I just Googled your product. Your chocolates are beautiful.
Aren't they?
They're beautiful.
The truth is, we should make at least a party once a year. I would definitely donate for when there is a gathering in the village all the time. No problem. Should they have what it's made in their village?
There you go. All right. Thank you for the presentation, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
have a nice.
Actually, I do have one more question, Mr.
Oh, I'm
Alpert.
sorry. Go ahead.
Just one quick question. So the product, the chocolates that you create, who is, in other words, do you basically vend them to stores that then sell them, or do you sell them directly, or how does that work?
There are some distributors which we drop them off the stuff, and it's mostly like 100 stores, and we're trying now to get into more distributors take our product, because as it's vegetable free and lactose free all the time and sugar free, so that's basically that we're so we are not basically retail.
Okay.
But this is the where I started my business, and hopefully we are tight in space. And again, I would like to very much thankful for everybody to take me as the presentation. And as the mayor said, we should reconsider. The thing is, it's the only M zone, and it could go with a parking lot or without a parking lot, as Robert represented. It's just that I feel that in my 3 years over here that it's so tight with parking, and I was myself seeing how people are running to the train with the last moment and up the hill, down the hill, rainy, snowy, till the post office over there. I mean, and it should be that everything should be full, and especially if you can get residents to park near to the train, or or office space around here, bringing some, and definitely as the mayor said, that it's going to be tax on the building.
All righty. Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll be hearing from you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for explaining.
Okay, next up is the Fire Department Chief Kaufer.
First question, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
You got a lot of
Okay.
static in the background, Jeremy.
I do, all right. Unlike Chuck, I'm actually at the beach. I'm in Cape May right now, so I'm gonna try to do this with the limited service that I have.
Okay, thank you.
The first item on the agenda is new members. I mistakenly omitted 2 new members from the host company. I'm not sure if the board will allow me to add them to the agenda for this evening.
Sure, we'll
the
just
one-
add them onto Monday's agenda for Tuesday's agenda at the meeting, so you can give it to us now.
Okay, from the hook and ladder is Emily Guerin. She's gonna be an over 18 member.
Okay, she's on, yep.
Yep, and then the 2 from the host company are Jude Moyes and Mike Burns.
And they're both
Both over 18.
over 18, okay.
Yes.
Okay, if you could just get that info back over to
Yep.
the clerk.
Will do.
Add that to the agenda, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Secondly, an update on the repair to the tower ladder, which I believe that Mr. Genito also has on his agenda. After the last board meeting, we had another phone conference, this time with our third-party testing outfit, as well as the manufacturer. And the testing outfit did not feel that it would be necessary to replace the bucket, but rather. So we did go ahead and make the repairs at the amount that I believe it's going to be about $7,300 as opposed to the $37,000.
Okay,
So that's really about it. The truck is back. It has been repaired. It's in service, and everything's good.
all right. All right, well, thanks for that great savings.
Hey, anytime.
Drive, you guys just keep recruiting more and more volunteers. Thank you for that.
The other thing is, and I had asked for this to be on the agenda, I'm not sure why it was omitted. We were approached by the Hillcrest Fire Department. They recently replaced one of their brush vehicles, and they have offered us the truck that they're taking out of service to the village for a cost of $2,000, if we would be interested. This is something that can be used for the likes of Suffern Day, when we have to call mutual aid to get into the wooded areas behind the water department, the sewer department. This is how we have no way to get to the brush truck, 4-wheel drive. It's described to me as a monster and a beast, and will go anywhere. So this is something before the board, whether they wish to take action on it or not.
Is the board aware of all of the variables in regards to the brush truck?
I believe I did send an email to everybody.
Yes, I just want to make sure, maybe if you want to give a quick review, or if the board needs any further information on it, Jeremy's on the line.
This is that older vehicle, right?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct. The vehicle itself is a 1961 Dodge M37, I believe. It's had a brand new pump installed for fighting fire, as well as a brand new drive shaft.
I think
Oh, I think we lost him.
Joe Hunt, to my knowledge, has taken a look at the vehicle, and for the cost of $2,000.
Yeah, Jeremy, you're cutting in and out, Chief.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you're cutting in and out.
Okay. I'm not sure what you heard, but it's had some considerable work done to it recently. The engine and the transmission, all that stuff is in great shape. I'm talking to members of Hillcrest Fire Department. Joe Hunt went and looked at it. For the $2,000, I don't think we can go wrong, but like I said, this is before the board. It's up to them.
Being a vehicle that's so old, I mean, vehicles in those days didn't use unleaded fuel, which is common today. Does it require any kind of special fuel?
No, it doesn't.
No. Nope. It's regular diesel.
Oh, diesel. Okay, that's why. Yeah.
And
Just like
there's a
same as our other
vehicle
truck.
from today. It's bulletproof, and anyone could fix it.
Correct.
Diesel mechanic.
Yes, it's been modernized throughout the years.
If you guys have a use for it, $2,000 is a pretty low risk, so.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it could serve the residents well.
And you have a place to
Best
send
use of it is in a parade.
damage?
I'm sorry, what was that, Steve?
You have a place to store it so it doesn't get damaged in foul weather?
Yep, yeah. We have an open spot for it in the hose company. We can make room for it.
Do we know if it falls into a category of the approved apparatus? What is that? What is that?
The NFPA?
The NFPA, yes.
Yeah, it's an enclosed cab, so that's the only thing in the NFPA that would go against it. But it's an enclosed cab truck.
Okay. And the insurance requirements on it? Any
Regular insurance that we have on all the other apparatus. Nothing
The
special.
insurance would be $1,000 a year approximately.
$1,000 a year.
And what about any special equipment that we'd need to add to it to utilize it, or is it fully
No,
loaded?
we would just take some of the brush equipment we have on the 19 patrol off of that and just add it to the brush truck. Nothing special would be needed.
Now,
The only thing we would need, I shall say, actually, is to have the truck lettered for Suffern, which I estimate between $750 and $1,000.
Jeremy, didn't you also mention a radio had to go in the vehicle?
The radio, I spoke to Hillcrest. The vehicle's coming with a radio, so we will not need a radio.
Huh. Okay, so that's bringing down the cost of the initial outfitting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
I
Very
agree with what Paul said before. For $2,000,
All right. And that's all I have.
And
Is there an
Jeremy, I wish
Sorry, what was
I
that?
was with you. I wish I was with you because you sound like you're in a great spot.
I'm actually sitting at a table in a restaurant right now.
Oh, lucky you, fancy pants.
in New Jersey?
Sorry. Cape May,
Outside.
Oh, outdoors. Okay.
outdoors.
Not till Tuesday, Ed. Not till
There
Tuesday.
you go. Yeah. Jeremy, do you think there's an opportunity that me or the board or whoever would like to take a look at it?
Yeah, definitely. Just
Okay.
reach out to me and I'll set something up with Hillcrest and we can take a ride over there and look at it.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you. Have a great vacation.
Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
John.
Take care.
Thanks for taking time out for us on your vacation.
No problem. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe. Most important, stay safe.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, Culture and Recreation, Ms. Mills.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Village Board. How's everybody doing?
Very
Well,
good,
thank you.
thank you.
Good, good. So I will be quick. The couple of events that we have coming up, as we have been doing all summer, we're continuing to do the chair exercise classes at the gazebo on Mondays and Wednesdays at 10. We have chair yoga at the gazebos on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 10. Nancy is doing Zoom for chair yoga on Fridays at 10. We're continuing with the walking club up at Yorkshire Park on Wednesdays at 10. Miss Jennifer from the Suffern Library has been fantastic with us, coming to the gazebo on Wednesdays at 11. We're not doing that this week because of the getting ready for the holiday, but we will continue next Wednesday. We have a great event that we've been working on that we're going to be having on Wednesday, September 16th. And I'm not sure if all of you have an updated agenda. I sent a new one because events with us have happened so fast that we've gotten new events. So you might not have some of these that I sent out originally. Wednesday, September 16th, we're going to have a senior social at the gazebo. We're going to have a boxed lunch for our seniors. They're going to come to the gazebo. We're going to have tables outside and then have a nice afternoon outside. We have upcoming another drive-in. And for everyone, I just want to express my extreme thanks to DPW and Recreation staff for Friday night's drive-in movie. We had a great night. We had a new setup. We were able to use a truck that we were put our drive-in movie on. It was a really nice night. We had a nice crowd. We had about 25 cars there. Everyone was socially distanced. It was just a really nice night. So our next movie is going to be September 25th. It's to be decided. So if anyone has any ideas of movies, please give your ideas. We have a few thoughts, but we're going to put it out there to see what might be the next good movie. So that will be on September 25th. We are looking at our 9/11 event. That will be at Suffern Village Hall. For those of you that were there last year, it will be again at Suffern Village Hall. We're going to move things around a little bit due to social distancing this year. The Suffern Lafayette Theater has been very generous to us with letting us use their lot. So we're going to be putting people in that lot and then lining up and looking at the ceremony in the center there. So a little bit of a difference setup, but same idea. We're going to have a wonderful 9/11 ceremony on Friday, the 11th at 7 p.m. at Suffern Village Hall. And in the past, the board has always been part of the ceremony. So coming this week, I'll be sending out some information and hopefully the board will participate in the 9/11 ceremony. It's a really, as you've all seen, it's a beautiful tribute. It's a beautiful part of Suffern's history, and the 9/11 ceremony is a really nice event. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to participate in it. We have coming up a car show we're looking at with the fire department. More details to follow on that. Window painting. The Suffern Chamber of Commerce is working again with us with the window painting. So this year it's going to be a little different depending if the kids are going to be back in school or not. We get all of our word out to them through the backpack. So the event will be on Saturday, October 3rd, and that is for specifically Suffern Middle School students, grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. The Chamber of Commerce is being very generous as always, and they're going to be giving us prizes for the kids for the window painting. So that is window painting. The next event we have coming up, the first chalk contest that we did was a tremendous success. We're going to do a Halloween chalk contest in October. After we had Artie Time a few weeks ago for children, we got a lot of feedback that adults were looking to do Artie Time. So we will have Artie Time at the gazebo for adults. We just have to get a date that works out best. We have another concert coming up. We have Mike Melandra from Mike Melandra's martial arts studio. He also plays in a band. It's called the 710 Experiment. So he will be playing for us on September 17th at the gazebo between 6:30 and 8:30. From what I'm hearing, it's a tie-dye kind of night. So we're looking forward to having Mike and his band 710 Experiment at the gazebo on September 17th. So that's our next. We're looking to do, it's come up in the past and this is the year for it, Halloween. We're going to skip doing the parade this year. We're going to do trunk or treat. I know, Mayor, we talked about trunk or treat as an option last year. This year it kind of fits in perfectly because the idea of having a parade. So we're looking forward to that. So we'll get together with the departments, coming up and talk about trunk or treat, see where it will be put. But, just trying to be creative and trying to work with the way the environment is right now. Trunk or treat will be a good fit for Halloween. So doing good, looking through a lot of events. Everything's been working very smooth. The item that I don't believe is on your agenda, which just came up the other day, but I had sent an email about it. Walgreens has donated to the village, to the recreation department, $500 worth of gift cards. So in order for me to accept them, I'm just going through the process. If the board feels that we can accept them and use those gift cards for purchases for events, I think it would be a really nice help for us. And Walgreens is happy to do it. So I don't know if tonight, Mayor, if I'm supposed to get approval tonight or if it's for the September 8th meeting, but I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, we'll bring it out to the Tuesday's meeting.
Right.
That's
Okay.
okay. So we have the resolution. It's all prepared and ready to go for Tuesday.
So I think that's it on my end. Does anybody have any questions for me?
No, the concert was great. Crush was great the other night last week. That was good. I got a lot of feedback on your drive-in, which was excellent. I'm sorry I missed it. The Audi time with the kids was excellent. They actually all had a great time, and they did a great job with Wendy, right?
Yes, she's fantastic.
And so keep up the good work. Yeah, you're keeping the adults, the seniors, and the kids active. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Charles Sawicki, Department of Public Works.
Charles, you're on. I see your number. You can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
I hear crickets.
He's on
Can
now.
you hear me?
There you go. You're on.
Okay. All right, great. Good evening. So I'd like to update the board. We finally did receive the DOT permit for the Wayne Avenue project.
Great.
We have a scheduled pre-construction meeting with the DOT on September 9th at 10:30. That's a required meeting by the DOT. Once that meeting's concluded, we can then schedule the start of that work. The water department is early morning tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. They're starting their annual water main hydrant flushing, and that's going to continue through approximately the week of the 21st. May get done a little bit sooner. Depends on how things go, but that again will start tomorrow morning early. O&R has requested permits for gas main replacement on Rockland Terrace, Prairie Avenue, South Street, Lincoln Street, Temple Lane, Lonigan, and a portion of Washington Avenue. And again, this is part of their program to replace the low pressure with high pressure gas mains. And they have one more piece of this, I believe, will be done next year. And once that's done, the majority of the work will be complete. Any questions?
No, that's great.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So the first item here is amending Resolution 124 of 2020, establishing the position of clerk in the DPW administration and appointing Daniel Curtin to the position of clerk effective July 7, 2020. To reflect that appointment was authorized by Rockland County Department of Personnel using the updated certificate of eligibility for exam number 19137. So I guess that's, somewhat of something needs to be followed up. And so that'd be something, be a resolution for next Tuesday's meeting.
We have the resolution already prepared, so I have the resolution. I don't know if the board has any further questions in regards to the position. I know we spoke about it previously, and so we'll have that on for Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The lights, we have a situation in the water and sewer department where we have a maintenance mechanic that has been out on he's been out on disability, workman's comp, and then on PERMA. He's collecting essentially disability from an injury. So he's been out for quite a long time. We have a need for additional help in the water department. So suggesting the temporary reassignment of a street department laborer Michael Augustin to the Water and Sewer Department for approximately 90 days. And that would, there is a vacant maintenance helper position at the Water and Sewer Department. Ultimately, I'd like to be able to maybe, we could have some further discussion next month to fill that position. We would have to post it and then fill that position.
And now,
Any questions in that regard?
That position is funded in the Water Department?
Yes.
Okay.
Next item is to hire a seasonal laborer for the Street and Refuse Department to temporarily replace the 90-day transfer of Michael Augustin, including review and of methods of funding to be utilized. So what the thought is here that we again would move Michael on a temporary basis. That position would be hopefully filled on a permanent basis. But in the interim, while Michael's gone, we could hire a seasonal helper to fill the void, but from Michael moving over to the Water and Sewer Department.
Would that seasonal helper be specific time frame? I'm thinking about possibly hiring them for the winter months, say in December, January, February for the seasonal position. Would that be more beneficial?
It could be. I think I'd want to give that a little bit more thought. I haven't given that thought. The initial thought here was to do it right away, but
okay.
I certainly like to sit down and talk with the supervisor and see what his thoughts are.
Okay. All right.
But in any event, it would be for a 90-day period.
Mm-hmm.
So is Michael needed in the sewer department? He's needed over there now, though, right?
Yeah. He's actually starting tonight. He started today.
Right. So doesn't that leave a hole for DPW?
Well, that's it. That's why I wanted to see if we could fill that with a seasonal laborer.
Right.
And then,
yeah,
to do it, it'd be beneficial to do it now. But again, I would, certainly could confer with Joe Hunt and see what his thoughts are in terms of the winter season. But I think to be able to do it now would fill that void.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? Any questions?
No? Charles, do you have anything? Could you maybe give a little update on your progress made looking at the JCO arrangement?
Yeah. So what I have a call into one of the engineers, one of the lead engineers at the DEC. The DEC, along with a lot of other departments, state departments, are working from home, so it's a little bit of a challenge to try to reach out to them. But I do have some thoughts on how we could possibly restructure their requirements and possibly get the cost down. We have one of our operators now has a 2A license. He's currently actively working to get the 3A. That'd be fantastic if in fact he does get that.
Go Amherst, go Amherst.
Yeah. So I think there's an opportunity here to take a look at possibly reducing their scope of work and save. I would say be able to save some funds on a monthly basis.
Sounds good.
I'd like to invite everyone to come by Village Hall and look at how great the sidewalks came out.
Yes, they did. And just to circle back, I'm so sorry, but is Joe Hunt on the call? Can he kind of fill us in on the, Mike, is he on the call?
Yeah, I've got to unmute him. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, so does anybody mind if we just kind of get clarity on the 90 days and if we should do it now or do it in the winter?
Joe Hunt, if you can hear me, I just sent out the notice to unmute yourself.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, in regards to the question about wintertime filling in now, taking one of the strongest laborers out of my facility is really going to hurt me, and putting a temporary in an unknown is a challenge, but I'm willing to take that now. And then hopefully we can convert him after the changeover to the water plant with Michael Augustin. Then I can get this kid full-time trained in 90 days.
Okay, so it would be beneficial, more beneficial now, Joe?
Yeah, because I'm down members now. I'm hurting
Okay.
now, but losing one of my strongest young men, and then bringing in another young man, hopefully will be a good kid.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Charles, could you give us an update on what you found out about the Village Hall?
Facade.
I don't want, what do you call that? The cornice?
Yeah, cornice. Yeah, so I've reached out to a number of various contractors. I was successful in getting one contractor out to meet me and look at the project. Once he did look at it, realized the scope of work, he had indicated he would not be able to do the project. What I'm finding is that because of this COVID, what you normally would be able to speak to someone on the other side of the phone, you're getting a machine and you're leaving a message, and it's been a real challenge just trying to get anybody out to look at the project. So I really, my goal here would be to get one or two contractors out, have some discussion, get some ideas, get a budget estimate on where we stand with getting that all that work completed. Unfortunately, I haven't really made any real progress.
All right. Well, we'll just keep trying and see what we can develop on a budget.
Okay.
Charles, on an unrelated issue, I brought it up a few months ago, was the last time, I think in March, was last time I mentioned it. Several of my neighbors have inquired about the Suffern sign that used to be on Maplewood Boulevard as you enter the village from Fox Lane and Mawa. And it's been gone for several years. I know there was some discussion where a sign had to be made, and with COVID, everything is sort of on hold. So I was just curious if you could at least provide a time frame when you expect that might be feasible, so I could tell these neighbors, give them an idea. That's all they want.
Yeah. Well, I know we talked about that particular issue. I'd be honest with you, I really don't have a specific update, but I will. What I can do is I can certainly get you an update for the Tuesday meeting.
Great.
I don't have an up-to-date and anything to offer you right now.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just want to be able to, a lot of people come to me and they say, hey, what about this? What about that? So I try to present these items when I'm meeting.
Okay.
And I know there was some questions from Sandy Stead as far as some of the memory trees as well. She was originally going to make a presentation tonight, but she has a message instead, which I'll speak to later. But I just want to sort of touch base as well about that and just make sure everything's, doing okay.
Yeah, so what we actually Joe Hunt had brought in one of our arborists that we've used through the years and asked him for some recommendations and actually take a look. There's the one tree that's over by Foxwood Pond. Apparently there's two trees. And they apparently had sat on the nursery in the nursery lot for a period of time, because what happened was as the tree sits there and starts developing and starts growing, the roots are growing, and because they're in a ball, the those roots are, they call it girdling, right? And so the root girdling. So we ended up uncovering and made some adjustments. He also made some recommendations on one of the other trees. And we're also going to get him in, and Joe's apparently going to schedule that, to give a little training on some of the trees. We do this from time to time, to bring a guy in for an hour or so just to give a little bit of training, up-to-date training on maintaining trees, planting and maintaining trees. And so we plan on doing that as well.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else? That's it?
Thank you, Charles. Tell the guys they
Okay.
did an excellent job on those sidewalks. I know Al Chamberlain, I believe, was the lead. He did a great job with, and all the other guys that were involved. It really came out well. Thank you very much.
Yeah, the street refuse, along with the assistance from the water and sewer department, they did a great job. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks.
Next up, Chief Osborn, Suffern Police Department.
Good evening, noon board. I hope all of you are well, staying safe during the summertime. I just have a couple things tonight on the agenda. I'll give you my update on Monday night. There's no reason, I think, to go over it twice. There's nothing that needs to be really said tonight that wait till Monday. But I do have a couple things that I'll be asking the board to accept. I know we've spoken to you guys about this before. We had 2 sergeants retire in August. One of them was Sergeant Mike Fennessy, who retired on August 27th. Mike did a phenomenal job. Mike was a detective at one point, served as a U.S. Marshals Task Force, Regional Task Force, served in the Narcotics Task Force, was a member of the United States Army, former NYPD. Great guy. We're very sad to see Mike go. He did a phenomenal job. So I'm just going to ask the board to accept that resignation, as well as resignation of Sergeant Deirdre Smith, who served over 23 years with this department, former member of the NYPD, served as a jail officer, patrol sergeant. So these are 2 big losses to our department. We're going to ask that the board accept their letter of retirement at the upcoming meeting on Monday.
So Clerk, let me ask a question. If we don't accept it, do they have to stay?
Joe, I already tried that trick. It's not going to work. So if I could, I would tell you about 2 of these. They don't accept both of them, but yes, I agree with you.
All right.
You're a fantastic officer.
I just figured I'd ask because it would be easier not to.
Exactly.
2 fantastic officers. I know they both started their career in the NYPD, so that really was the foothold there. Right, Chief?
That's right, man. You both did a phenomenal job. You get it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sergeant Deirdre Smith and Sergeant Mike Fennessy for their service to the village of Suffern. Great loss, but we wish you well.
I wish them well, but I'm still going to say no.
Is there any opportunity to participate in a clap out?
In the police world, they have what they call walkouts. We asked both officers if they would like a walkout. They declined. They just didn't want one. However, maybe when COVID slows down a little bit, I can convince them maybe to come back and get one. Because
so maybe we can do a drive-by or do something special?
As you know, we're good at those. We run very good car parades, so if that makes it easy, we'd love to do it.
Past their house.
Could do that too.
I do think we need to do something for these 2 because they have just been stellar all the way through, and their careers have been amazing.
And I agree, Joe, and I'm hoping I can talk them in to a walkout or whatever we can do. And once the COVID regulations loosen a little bit, maybe we can put something together.
Well, ironically, I have a very close friend who's a sergeant in the Savannah Police Department, and he just put his retirement papers in, and they did a call out over the radio with an announcement, and his fiance videoed, just used her phone and took a video, and they just shared it. So maybe that's something we can think about and I can work on with you, Clarke. Maybe that's something we do.
Anything we could do for them, I think we would
But
all.
they have to be standing by their car just one more time.
I think we might be able to do that. I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you.
Okay.
I do have an overtime report. I know I sent it to you guys. You want me to read it and go through it? You tell me whatever you want, and whatever's fine.
No, I'm good.
It was high, but is that due to the people who are retiring, taking their vacation time?
Yeah, Chuck, everything I pretty much, it's, Chuck, it was basically due to, what I put down was you guys, manpower shortages due to vacations, an officer on long-term injury duty, officers using up their prior time to retirement, officers on military leave, using up other contractual time. And one thing I want to make sure the board understands, and it's probably something you just didn't think about, and I wouldn't either, but during those several months of COVID, we couldn't take off. And I'm not saying the other department shouldn't have, but we worked probably at least 2 to 3 more months of days, 60, 80, 90 days at least, than every other department in the village, because we had to, with no time off. When we get that, my point, the reason I'm saying that, is that now they're starting to use up the time they accrued, because we really couldn't afford to lose them at that time. We were getting hammered with calls. And I know you know this, we had several deaths for COVID here in the village. Officers were struck with COVID, unfortunately still, so we're still feeling the effects of this illness. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that that's why a lot of times why these amounts the way they are. There's a little bit more of a reason behind it than just people not showing up to work.
All right, Chief. Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you so much. I'm here for anything, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Genito, the treasurer's report, please.
Yes, Mayor, just as an update, basically, we're running right now through the audit for 2020 and preparing the state report to be filed with the state. That's our really big work going on right now. We do have a resolution that's going to amend Resolution 144 that was adopted at the August meeting. That was the one for the transfer of funds for the bucket truck, and that was to replace the bucket. As you know, as Chief Jeremy had described earlier, they needed a lot less money. So we have a resolution amending the other resolution and transferring less money than we originally stated. And also there's a discussion that I wanted to have with the village board about what's known as a general municipal law, section 6P, employee benefits, accrued benefits reserve fund. Essentially, with the retirement of the 2 police sergeants, just so the board understands the dynamics of this request. The police contract provides that the police officers, when they retire, can get paid up to 1/2 of their accrued sick time. They can accrue a total of 180 days, which means that at retirement, if they have 180 days accrued, they can get paid for up to 90 of those days. Now, we found out when discussing with the chief whether or not the sergeants had to be replaced right away. In addition to any kind of staffing issues, he noted that there was a case where the village was told by the courts that they had to replace a sergeant or lieutenant within 60 calendar days. In other words, appoint a replacement. Now, 60 calendar days is 43 working days, 44 working days in some years. And the issue here is if somebody has, for instance, accrued time of 90 days that they can take and get paid for, essentially you have that extra amount of time that you're paying for 2 sergeants that you didn't budget for originally. Now, in the case that we have with the 2 retirements, one of those sergeants has 73 days that they can get paid out for and will get paid out for of accrued sick time. And so if you take the 43 days that you have to replace or appoint the sergeant, essentially you're going to be paying for 2 sergeants, even if you waited until the 43rd working day for an additional 30 days. So when I take a look, every year we run for our audit a list of what's known as compensated absences. And a compensated absence is paid sick time or paid vacation time that people have accrued and would get paid for at retirement. And the board has distribution of the information I sent to you, and you can see that some of these are pretty extensive. The total accrued time, if we had to pay it all out tomorrow, was $1.6 million approximately. So what the state does allow you to do is set up a reserve fund to pay for up to all of those accrued time that you want to, or a portion of it. I would suggest that in our particular situation here with 2 sergeants retiring within the first quarter of the year or very close to it, we still have 9 months of the year to benefit from them retiring and our hiring on 2 new individuals. In other words, 2 people are going to be promoted to sergeant, and then you're going to have 2 new individuals hired at the lowest salary and at the lower retirement rates, et cetera. So, and with no longevity to be paid out. At this point in time, the village is not in trouble budget-wise. But if this were to have occurred somewhere past the middle of the year, we could have a budget crisis in front of us. And if you look at, for instance, the police, there are several police officers who could retire tomorrow because they have a significant number of years in the system and on the force. So my suggestion is that we take a portion of fund balance and reserve it so that if we were to come across this type of situation at any time during the year, that is where the money would come from to pay for that past service cost. And it would avoid a budget crisis in a difficult year. So I wrote it out. I wrote a sample resolution for you. I gave you a copy of the state controller's document on reserve funds, and in particular, that particular type of reserve fund. And I'm asking that the board adopt a resolution to do that. And we would take approximately 1/3 of what we actually need, about $500,000, which if you look at the listing of people, they would pay for the first 3 or 4 people if they were to retire. It's entirely possible that you could have the top 3 or 4 people on that list retire in the same year. And unfortunately, it could be in the beginning of the year or towards the end of the year. And later in the year that happens, of course, as I mentioned, it's more of a crisis. So that's what the discussion is about there. One quick note on the fire truck that you were talking about. The issue with that is if we are going to purchase that vehicle, there wasn't any money in the budget prepared to purchase that vehicle. The fire chief had given us a number, and we'd have to look at the revised numbers because now a radio is not included, but they still need to have it striped and prepared, as well as you would incur the insurance cost, and of course now you would have the maintenance of that vehicle for the year. So the one thing that the board has to consider is it's not a very good year budget-wise. As we go to close the first 3 months of our fiscal year, ending August, I'm going to run a report for all of you with some detail, especially on the revenue side, and focus on that because some of our major revenues are down significantly. And as an example, sales tax, we just got in our sales tax for March, April, and May from the county. And that sales tax was down approximately 28% from the prior year. Now, for the year-end budget, that actually goes to last year, we're about to break even budget-wise with that. So that's not that bad. This year, according to the county, they're looking at, for the first couple of months of our fiscal year, it's somewhere between 8.5% to 10% reduced. And of course, there's some other major revenues, fines and forfeitures, parking, mortgage tax. Very hard to tell where that's going to go because the last report we got, which happened in August, was actually only covering through March, and we get that every 6 months. And the county said it's very difficult for them to give us an estimate on where the mortgage tax is going to go. They don't get that kind of information on a monthly basis that they can help us with. So that's just to alert everybody that it's going to be tight, if anything, on the revenue side in particular. So we're trying not to spend money if we don't have to. And I understand some people might say, a truck for under $5,000, you know, even though it's 60 years old, might be a really great deal. But that's something that you all have to consider when you're going to, let's say, buy something that you did not intend to buy initially in the beginning of the year.
Yeah. No, Mike, thanks. You read my mind. I was going to ask you if you could take a preliminary outlook at revenue. So thanks for giving us a little taste of that. I thought I had some other thought I was going to ask you, but it slipped my mind.
I think it's a great idea to establish that employee benefit liability reserve fund.
I do as well.
Okay. Good. And that money would come from the,
That would come from the fund balance that we have.
Unassigned, right, the unassigned, okay.
Unassigned fund balance, yes.
Right.
Mike, I just thought of what I was going to ask you from a revenue standpoint. Is there any communication or any indication from the state yet on whatever funding we rely upon from them, where that's headed? I imagine that's a challenge as well.
Well, not really. Actually, the only funding we actually get from the state now that is a regular amount of any substance is what's called the aid and incentive to municipalities. We get about $88,000 a year from the state. Actually, what the state did, if you might recall, when Governor Cuomo presented his budget, he took out the AIM payments. They used to be state aid. And he said to the legislature, if you want them that money back in the budget, then you can have it taken out of the 1% that I'm going to allow for sales tax on the internet that the counties get. So the counties will make you whole. And now what happens is the state comptroller's office, literally it doesn't come from the state, it's really coming from the county portion of sales tax. And the state comptroller confirms that the money has been set aside and it's coming to us. So no, we didn't get a reduction in that state aid. It's no longer state aid, that's why. But yeah. It's
coming out of the sales tax portion, right?
It comes out of the county's sales tax, yes. There was a 1% internet sales tax that was approved nationally. Mm-hmm. And what happens is the states get that money and the counties get their respective share. And that's the money that the governor said, if you want to continue these payments in state aid, in lieu of state aid, you can take it out of the 1% sales tax. And that's what they did.
Have you heard anything about the increase in sales tax in Rockland County? And then would that, I mean, I guess that would benefit us if that happened.
I'm not sure how it would benefit us because what happens is the county shares its sales tax with us based on a formula. Right. So the question would be whether the increase they asked for is an increase that they would be required to share with us.
Okay. Okay. All right, great. Is there anything else?
No, we're good. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Genito.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, Mr. Magrino.
Okay, good evening again. The first item that will be on next week will be a public hearing for 475 Beacon Partners regarding their request for a special permit to operate a private club. That's the cigar bar. I've been in touch with their surveyor, planner, Jay Greenwell. They've hit a couple of roadblocks with the county health department, so I'm not sure if that's going to continue or not. We left it on for now to keep the public hearing. I will speak with Jay this week. They may be changing their plans somewhat, may not need the special permit, which is for a private club. So right now it's on for that public hearing, but if there's a change, I'll certainly let everyone know. The second
I was wondering why they needed a special permit for a club when they're just going to be a tobacco shop and a small restaurant bar.
Well, if that's all they were going to be, they wouldn't need one. They also indicated that they wanted to be a private club so that you could go to a spot, you know, buy a cigar and go to a location and smoke in the club, you know, and have lockers and things of that nature.
Right, but that was denied.
Well, right. The county Department of Health has at this point said that that's not going to be permitted, but they said they were, you know, they were kind of going to go back and see what they could do with them. So as of right now, unless something changed with the county Department of Health, yeah, you're right. They probably won't be back for.
So will they not go forward unless they can have a club?
I don't know. That's where they're at now. That's what they're deciding and seeing what they can do in terms of the plan, what they're going to do with the property. So my understanding from speaking with Jay is that's what they're discussing right now is what's next, basically, if they don't go that route.
Oh, I thought they wanted to be in the village. Okay.
No, I think they do, but they have to see how, in what form, I guess, is the best way to.
Right. They didn't decide on how they're going to proceed. If they get a total denial from the county, that's it. Then they're going to have to change their plan and present it the way, if it's just going to be a retail outlet and a restaurant and no special permit required. I mean, that's up to them how they're going to pursue it.
So are they not going to pursue if they don't get the club?
No, I think I believe they are going to pursue it anyway.
Okay. Are you having ongoing meetings that is the village talking to them regularly?
Mr. Magrino has been in contact with them.
I've been speaking to Mr. Greenwell, Jay Greenwell, their planner. So
okay.
We're kind of waiting because if they go another route, they really wouldn't be before the village board. They would just go to planning board and zoning.
Right. But they still plan on doing something.
I suppose, yeah. I'm saying I don't know what it is, I guess is the way. Yeah, my only concern is the public hearing for next week at this point. I don't know what which direction they're going to go, what form they're going to come in.
Okay.
The second public hearing is with respect to the property maintenance conditions at 27 Hillside Drive. Again, we'll have testimony next week from the building department about the conditions. I guess show some photos also. The only thing I would ask ahead of time, maybe for some discussion tonight, obviously no decision, it's a public hearing next week, would be what the board's thoughts were in terms of if you were to grant that, and that would be to undertake to clean up the property, which has been done in the past, whether that would be something done internally or contracted out. And in the past, I believe it's always been done internally. There may have been one time where it was contracted out. I do recall specific instances where it was done internally, and by that I mean by the DPW.
Depending on the staffing and speaking with Charles Sawicki, depending on the staffing and I believe he received some quotes for a private carter to undertake that instead of utilizing our DPW and re-levying the cost onto the tax bill. I mean, that would be one approach, or using our own manpower to do it.
Right. Either way, we re-levy it on the taxes.
Right.
So it's a matter of, frankly, if the village is going to lay out and pay for, either way you're paying, right? But either lay out and pay a private entity to do it, or take DPW away from other projects.
Yeah, if it takes us 2 days, we're taking the manpower away from the village of Suffern.
Rob, if we pay a private carter to clean it up, we have to front the money. How long does it take us to recoup it?
Well, it depends on if the taxes are paid. Now, let's assume for a moment that the taxes will not be paid. They get re-levied. The county ends up paying, and because they go ahead and collect the taxes, but you're looking at not probably until, say, I'll defer to Michael on this, maybe 2022.
Yeah, well, if I may,
tax wouldn't be due till next year anyway.
Yeah,
and then it gets re-levied if not paid.
Right. So what you would have is, if it was not paid this year and was re-levied on the June 1, 2021 taxes, we wouldn't get the money back until April of 2022.
Now, here's another question that I have. So the house, my understanding is that the house is in arrears several $100,000 in taxes already because the owner has not paid their taxes for 10 years or so, something to that effect. And with all the other fees and costs that have been added on, it's quite a bit of money. And there may be a certain point where the value of the house, even if it were to be sold at auction, is zero, because the tax lien on that property is beyond the value of the house itself. So what is the scenario at that point? In other words, there might be a physical point where there's no further levy capable. You know what I mean? In other words, there has to be a certain point where the county writes it off, I would think.
Right, and again, it's not much consolation to the taxpayers, but the village does get paid from the county. The county would, take the loss, and again, everyone's the county taxpayer also. So the issue, yeah, I mean, they have plenty of properties that they have issues with that they have to put up for auction. So. Yeah, they don't always recover the amount that's out there. I've seen it, at some point they take what they can get.
So does it make sense to ask, like Joe and Charles, what their opinion is on whether they can handle it or not handle it once again?
That's right.
Let's let the poor people that have to manage the project see what they say. That might not be a bad idea.
Let's speak to Charles and let's let Charles make that determination to see if we could lose the manpower for definitely a 2-day job, if not longer. And if we have the proper equipment, we may not have the equipment to pull all of that debris off of the property.
Well,
how long before the county puts that house up for auction for failure to pay taxes?
It's been an ongoing saga, if you will. It was up.
It's not going to happen anytime soon.
Well, certainly not under the current conditions, no.
But we're not going to be holding anything of the person who owns the property, right? Like, we're just junking it, correct?
Well, what we've done in the past, because to avoid any issues, and again, this we'll get into at the public hearing. This really doesn't, I guess, necessarily go to the amount, but we do, I think, store it at DPW for a period of time. The current conditions, again, we'll get into it at the public hearing, but to the extent it creates a dangerous situation, a health hazard, once that is cleared, that's a good situation then for the property at Hillside. The question is, if the property owner says, hey, that one chair that you took that, like junk to you is something that is important to me and it's private property, et cetera.
Right,
so
but
we have held it for a certain amount of time and, for him to get back certain property.
But we've done this before in this property, correct?
Yes.
Has he ever come back and taken anything?
Yes.
So can we give him a 15-day notice that whatever he wants, he can take? And if he does not take it, then we are junking it, because that costs us money to store stuff.
Yeah, but that's in true. But I think in the scheme of things, the bigger question is the 2 days worth of.
But then we're going to have to pay storage for the guy's junk to an outside person.
Well, we could have them bring it to DPW.
But why can't we? Is there a problem with noticing him that we've done this however many times and you need to go in and get your junk, or this time we are not going to keep your junk?
Again, I'll defer to Charles and Joe on this, but I don't think it's kept for an extensive amount of time. And yeah, we can make it 2 weeks or something, but it's so that there's not a claim that, hey, something of extreme value was taken.
And we shouldn't call it junk. And that was my bad. And I do apologize, because Lord knows I have things in the house where people look at me like, why do you have that? But it's important to me and no one else. So I didn't mean to be disrespectful that way, but I do think that we should consult with DPW and Charles and, do we want?
That's what we initially said. DPW Director Charles Sawicki should be able to, in conjunction with Joe, take a look at it, take a look at the debris, that the stuff that is there, what is necessary, how many container loads. I know Charles had a couple of people out there. They needed numerous containers and amount of tonnage, so it's a cost. But we just have to make sure that we're taking doing it the right way this time, and at the same time protecting the integrity of the gentleman's goods.
Correct.
Now, let me also ask a question. So in the past, he has reclaimed some of the materials, and from what I understand, he's brought them right back to that same location. Is that correct?
I suppose. I'm not entirely sure if he's brought it back.
So, I mean, how do we prevent that from happening? Because
You
that's just
can't.
basically...
You can't.
I mean,
We are
Either it's a property maintenance condition is dangerous or it's not. If he goes back there with, 2 chairs and a table, or, you can't say you're not allowed to bring it back.
There with a truckload of stuff, and just dumps it right back where it started, then the whole process is for naught. That's my point.
Yes.
No, understood. But I'm saying that has not happened. It's more been a situation of, maybe a couple things are taken. And my understanding was of the previous items that were taken did not go directly back to the property.
Okay.
Maybe eventually it ended up there, but it didn't go directly back. But yeah, that is a concern. But again, we can only, the only reason you're allowed to do this is because the village has a property maintenance code, and once the condition is cleared, it's cleared. There's only so far you can go, and
Now, I have a couple more questions. Another issue is I understand that some of the items or some of the equipment, or whatever you want to call it, on the property is dumpsters, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? So
yes.
Typically, residents themselves don't own dumpsters. They're typically owned by some carter, that you rent them from, something to that effect. So do we know who owns the dumpsters that are on that property?
Right. That's one of the things that the code enforcement officer will talk about, and I know that he was looking into that. And yes, either have them take it off directly or the village take it off, and
so
go from there. But we did change.
I don't want the village to be responsible for that.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to bring it up. The other thing is oh geez, my just went right out of my head. I had another question about this ongoing saga. My understanding, this isn't my question, but it just from past, I recall that this gentleman essentially declared bankruptcy or something like that, which allowed him to evade this process for about a year. So did that change? Did that have a hearing? That whole situation, whatever?
Yeah, I think we're getting into the nuts and bolts of the public hearing item, so we can address that at the public hearing, but the fact of the bankruptcy does not, if there were one, or it's still, any stay was still in effect, does not affect proceeding under this provision of the code.
Yeah.
It may prevent proceeding in other directions, but it doesn't prevent proceeding under that section of the code.
I remembered my other question. I recall about a year and a half ago, the village passed an ordinance regarding dumpsters and so forth on a property for more than a certain number of days. Has this property been cited in violation of that code during this period?
Yeah, I believe so. And what I was going to say earlier was that provision of the code also could apply to the carter. So that's one of the items that, the code enforcement officer would look into and suggest to the carter that it might make sense to voluntarily remove it rather than proceed without having removed it. Let's put it that way.
Okay, and that was the question I was trying to remember about the ordinance that we have. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I don't know, maybe Mayor, if you want to speak to Mr. Sawicki and Mr. Hunt on that
Yes.
coming week, and we can address it during the hearing.
Yes, I know that we have, I know Mr. Sawicki received a couple of price quotes, and then we'll just do an analysis, see what the cost would be for us as the village to take that undertaking on, or contract it out.
So Ed, can you send all of that to us prior to the meeting so we can make a decision on that?
The information, Mr. Sawicki will have that.
Okay, I'll text Charles tomorrow and ask him to include us on all the information. Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next item was going to ask Ashley tonight to have a discussion on establishing a code of conduct for public comment during regular village board meetings. I sent around a proposed resolution. I could do screen share on it, primarily. Can you see it?
Yes.
So primarily the proposed conduct, and I think I mentioned this earlier, village board meetings are obviously public meetings. There's no legal requirement to permit public comment at these meetings. Of course, over the course of the years, it's been the common practice to allow that, for various reasons. And this is just a way to establish, as many places do, policy with respect to how that will be handled. I've been associated with the village for, I want to say, about 15 years now. And there's kind of been, almost an ebb and flow of sometimes folks talking for quite a while, sometimes, not really getting much public comment. But, it's, so without having a policy in place, it's kind of hard to tell someone, well, you've been speaking too long, your time is up. So it's helpful to have something in writing. It's also helpful to have something in writing for the rare instance, which I frankly haven't experienced in Suffern of, where it might be appropriate to ask someone to be removed, leave the meeting. So just a couple of the points would be to allow questions or comments either on matters that are on a particular agenda or other items of concerns related to the business of the village board. Of course, the first one would be to make, folks are asked to make a comment or ask a question or request to come forward, use the podium so that everybody can hear. And importantly, that comments and questions should be directed to the Board of Trustees. That's the purpose really of the portion. The speakers are requested to state their name and address prior to making a comment or asking a question. Would be speakers are limited to a specific time frame for comments or questions. I left it blank. I had suggested in the past 3 minutes, but again, that's up to the board to make the determination. In terms of the time, there's no sharing of time or deferral. You can't say I'm only going to speak for a minute and give my other 2 minutes to. The mayor really is the one who kind of controls what takes place and should really direct the person. And as is practice in other places, whether it's 3 minutes, whatever, if somebody's in the middle of a thought, so they're obviously not finished or middle of a question. We often wait until a person is done with their time. They have numerous questions to ask the questions at the conclusion of their allotted time. The board answers the questions. Again, if during their time period, it's appropriate or desirable to, answer a question to kind of keep things moving, you can do that. But again, it's more to kind of keep the orderly flow. Again, it's just something that's out there. The speakers not to address the audience will should be directed to the board. And again, the note back and forth. Discussion should be made in a civil manner. Obviously, insults are not tolerated. And if a speaker, audience member's conduct is determined by the mayor or as a presiding officer to be disruptive, they'll be advised of that. And any permission that they have to speak or be there will be considered to be revoked. And if they refuse to leave upon an appropriate warning, action may be taken to be removed. Again, I have not experienced that suffering, but it's something that needs to be done if the mayor asks, for example, the police chief or someone to have a disruptive person. So I don't know if you want to get into detail about it tonight in terms of discussion.
Well, I'm not going to vote on it without discussion. Is it something that we want to vote on Tuesday?
The one thing, and again, I leave that to the board. I'm sorry to jump in. The one thing I know there had been some comments back and forth. The one thing that I had suggested, I know that folks had some concern about it. Because the tradition really has been not to have any type of time limit. But, there's really, I guess, 3 village board meetings left that this would apply to. So in this village year, so to speak, and then there'd be a reorganization in December. So my suggestion was to adopt something along the lines of what's here and see how it works for 3 meetings. And then, in December it can be revisited. So that was my suggestion.
Okay, so if that's what we're gonna, is that what the board wants to do, or can I put input?
Input in input.
Okay, so I think that if we're going to request the public to do set amount of time, we should also ask the board members, all of the board members, to do the same. So that if someone from the public gets up and something is not liked by hearing from one of the board members, that they are not given a 20-minute speech, or 20-minute speeches aren't done by anybody on the board. And the same respect goes back and forth for the residents and for the village board. And then that way, everybody gets whatever limit of time that we put on it, and it goes both ways. So the public doesn't get to pontificate and the village board doesn't get to pontificate. And I understand that the mayor runs the meeting and it's his meeting. I get that. And I'm sorry, Ed, you're the mayor. So I don't mean this. I'm looking for a down the road future. So what happens if there's a particular circumstance where the person in charge likes what the person is saying and gives them a 15-minute, and then someone that they don't like is talking and cuts them off in 3 minutes?
No,
so
that's why it's important to have a time limit. There'll be a time limit. Again,
right.
I said if you go beyond the 3 minutes, I meant 30 seconds.
No, but I meant is there's only one person mentioned, and sorry for the alarms. There's only one person that is allowed to say, hey, you're over your time limit, or do you know what I mean? Like, can it be broader than
I understand. I think, and again, just to address that, it's a lot. The board members can always jump in and say, hey, you're beyond your 3 minutes, or your time was up and you need to stop, or whatever. There needs to be one individual in charge, and the statute indicates it's the mayor who's in charge. So either it's there's none, or to address the first issue, that's
So can it be?
It really is a board issue. But, the person in first instance is the mayor and or, the village clerk, or whoever the mayor can say, all right, you set the time and let me know when it's 3 minutes, And again, in practice,
right.
I've seen it in many municipalities, there's really never, I don't want to say never, but most times it's not an issue. Again, somebody's allowed to finish a thought. They're not at 3 minutes. They're not stopped in the middle of a sentence.
That's not what right. But that's not what I'm saying. So with the wording is what I'm speaking of, is that there's only one person in charge of saying who can speak longer, who can't speak longer. So can it be the one person in charge? I don't want to keep throwing Ed under the bus because he's the mayor for down the road. Can it be that person in charge says, okay, you're done, and have one person second it? Or can it be the mayor says, sorry, Ed, the person in charge says, go ahead for 15 minutes and somebody on the board challenge it? shouldn't it be a two-person decision so that one, so it's not, or am I totally complicating this?
I think you're overcomplicating it. I think that the presiding person, whoever that presiding person may be, it may be the mayor, a deputy mayor, or whoever is in the future. I mean, as long as we have these guidelines in place, I don't think that anyone would abuse that, as long as we have the guidelines and the protocol in place for the meeting and the time of the speaker. As Mr. Magrino indicated, that if the speaker was mid-sentence, just finishing up and just needed 30 more seconds, that's it. You know, either the mayor could say, yes, continue with your 30 seconds, you have 30 seconds, and that's it. You're not going to let them pontificate, as you said, for 15 minutes if that person in charge was looking favorably upon them. I agree with you.
What I have seen typically is that it's not the mayor, it's not a member of the board,
right,
that's keeping the time. It can be a clerk, maybe in your village we would have Mike Genito do it. And after the person has spoken for, say, 2.5 minutes, if you're going with 3, that timekeeper would advise them, you have 30 more seconds, okay? So it's not really going to fall into the mayor's lap to say, oh, time's up, and he's the one who's catching the daggers and arrows and what have you. It works quite well, and I guess it's just a matter of once people get used to it. It's a mechanism which is typically used in every undemocratic town and village that I've been associated with.
I want to chime in here, if I may. So to me, I see this as a solution in search of a problem. I think the village has for decades allowed public comment without any kind of particular regulation, how long they could speak, and so forth. And the board could have a back and forth with the residents. And that to me is what democracy is all about. We are a citizen government, and it's very important, in my opinion, for the public to talk to their board and to have a voice in this village. I think that this is basically an opportunity, if you will. Whoever has decided that this should be written is an opportunity to limit speech of the public. I think that that's a poor thing to do when we haven't had an issue with that. I can only think of, in the nearly 2 years that I've been a trustee, I can think of 1 or maybe 2 residents who've talked for maybe a little longer than was comfortable, but it was never unreasonable. I don't want to name any names, but we know there's a few people who tend to talk long, but it's not something that's excessive. It's not something that's been a problem, and it's not something, that I think, in my opinion, has made our meetings go longer because everybody's talking too long. No, maybe 1 or 2 people talk too long. I think that's fine if they want to get their point across. They want to feel that they're part of this government and part of being a citizen, responsible citizen in their village. I think that's great, and I think the public should have the opportunity to talk and ask and receive questions, ask questions and receive answers without being fettered by some arbitrary rule. I think this is really bad, and I can tell you right now, if we vote on this, my vote is no.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other comments from the boards or questions or concerns in regards to the proposed resolution? Does anyone have a comment on the time frame?
Yeah, I was going to say, we would probably need to agree on a time on this before we have it for next week.
Yeah, and can we put in the wording about for all, Rob? For all residents?
If you're asking me, can we limit the village board members' time? I would, I'd wholeheartedly agree. I'm half kidding. I mean, this is, for orderly conduct of the meetings. The village board is there to do a job. So I get that, maybe you do want to limit, everybody's opportunity to speak. I think that's a separate issue if you want to address it. I'd recommend against it, to be honest with you. I mean, the village board, along the lines of what, Steve is saying, you're there to conduct village business. So again, does it sometimes turn into or can it have the potential to turn into a situation where somebody maybe pontificates longer than folks would like. Sure. So, but with that said, I've really never seen, limits necessarily. I shouldn't say that, the limit necessarily on board members. I think my suggestion would be to kind of address this, see how it works. See how it works next week. See how it works in October. And
Well, it's a resolution. It's already put into play.
Listen, it's by resolution. You could change it the next month. It's more for the public. It's more for the board to kind of have guidelines. And again, if you put this in, again, with the understanding that come reorg, this is something really that every reorg meeting this should be on, just so that the public knows, the village board knows, and again, maybe folks, Steve, they won't vote on it. We'll have no time frame, and that's fine. But I think that I don't think you need to tie board members into this. My suggestion would be address this. If it's necessary to address that with board members, again, maybe that's something to come up the reorg, which is only 3 meetings away.
Thank you. So,
Okay, so
go ahead. I'm sorry, Paul.
I was just going to say, so if we do want to see how this goes next week, that obviously assumes that it's voted in, we'd have to have it prior to the audience petition. We have it on the agenda prior to the audience participation.
That would be my suggestion, yeah.
Okay.
How do you feel about the 3-minute time frame? That's the general standard across the county and municipalities. Does anyone have any comment in regards to the time?
Well, I had said 4, but that was shut down.
Well, I thought it was bouncing between 3 and 5, and that's why I suggested 4. That's the only reason I did.
Yeah, I liked 4 myself.
Okay, it's the board's choice. What we put in there, or I'll bring forward a 3-minute. I personally like the 3-minute time limit. If I present it with 3 minutes, or we present it with 4 minutes, it's board's choice. All
And
right. We'll
are we basing this on Cooperstown?
Cooperstown? Not that I know of.
Oh, so in our package, a lot of this stuff was had to do with Cooperstown.
So I don't know where a lot of it came from. A lot of it came from just practice, and I took some from various places.
Well, no,
I looked at Cooperstown. I looked at a number of municipalities and kind of.
No. Please believe I was happy because I love Cooperstown. So I was like, oh, okay, I like that. Cooperstown. We can do that.
There was a few. I'd like to say I made it up completely on my own. It was, based on my experience. And then I saw, there's some school districts that had it.
There's a lot of experience. There's a lot of experience that has been going on between Mr. Magrino, Mr. Glickel, Mr. Genito, and ourselves with the input and the recommendations. So I think, whatever the board chooses, I think that we need some protocol here for the meeting and some controls in place.
Now, Mayor, you say that we need some controls in place, but yet I failed to see any time when there was an issue that was out of control.
Well, I do think the rec department was completely out of control with the fact that no one's addresses were read, and we had to listen to 4 hours of reading emails.
Right, but that was read by the mayor. So that would be, if you want to put a regulation on the mayor, that's what you're saying here. I'm not suggesting that, but I mean, that's a completely different thing than the public. I just want to.
No, because that was part of the public, and any trustee could do the same.
But my point is, the mayor choosing to read emails, he had a stack of emails, and that was not the only time he did that. If you recall, there was the issue with the lawsuit. Okay, so there's been many times the mayor tends to grandstand. This is who he is.
But I know, but Steve, at any point in time, we have the same opportunity.
I understand that, But my point is that this regulation has nothing to do with the board. This regulation is strictly about people calling in or in person if we ever resume in person. Speaking of which, Mayor, can you answer that question? You mentioned that the governor had not yet approved extending Zoom meetings. Do you know what the status of that is? I didn't check.
Okay.
Let's stay on one topic. Let's
Yes.
stay on the meeting and the decorum
So
for
at
a
this point,
meeting.
we have Zoom meetings, is what we're doing.
As
Okay.
far as I know, yes.
Okay.
We
So
can resume in-person meetings if we would like, but let's stay with this topic.
okay. So basically, you know, for instance, we had quite a lot of public participation at the last meeting, and I personally, I know, Mayor, you know, you probably were not too happy with the public participation at the last meeting. I thought it was great that the public was involved and expressing their views. Okay. I think that's a good thing, and I think limiting the public is a bad thing. And that's why I think that this, like I said, I'll use those words again, this is a solution to a problem that we don't have.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have the resolution. We'll have one prepared for Tuesday, and which will be presented if anyone else has any other comment.
Okay. The last thing I had, as you know, the village has been involved with the governor's office of storm recovery with respect to, you know, the rebuilding or demolishing of certain properties that were damaged. So there's the village is eligible for certain funds from GOSER. It's called Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. And in order to be eligible for the funds, the village needs to agree to enter into what's called a subrecipient agreement with the Housing Trust Corporation. And that's basically just an agreement that says that, you know, if the village hires contractors, you know, that we have to enter into a particular agreement with the Housing Trust Corporation, which authorizes the village to use those funds to pay those contractors. And Michael, if you want to, I don't know if you want to jump in on it, a treasury thing and a legal thing.
Well, I'd only say it's pretty much a no-brainer. It's federal funds that we wouldn't have available to us unless we did get into the subrecipient agreement. As you know, we have removed a lot of, well, the properties have been cleaned up and there's been some other additional costs. But in any event, this allows us to pay those contractors. And I think the amount was upwards over $600,000. So it's a substantial amount of money. And I don't see any downside to it at all.
Okay, so that's it. I'll have a resolution for that, or I think I already sent it, but I have a resolution for that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Magrino. Mr. Glickel.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
There's a simple resolution approving the settlement of a PERB case, which apparently was settled in May of 2018, but we have not lived up, at least to this point, with the terms of the settlement agreement, which is the payment of $1,120 to a since retired village employee. The improper practice charge was filed back in October of 2015. A settlement was negotiated and arrived at in May of 2018, and somehow the ultimate completion of the settlement has fallen through the cracks. The counsel for CSEA in Albany reached out to me last week and asked that this be completed, and so we prepared a short resolution approving the settlement and the payment of the sum of $1,120 to Scott Brown.
All right, thank you. Okay. Trustees, thank you, Mr. Glickel.
You're welcome.
Trustees. Questions, comments, concerns?
I've got something. I just want to relay a message. Basically, as I mentioned earlier, Sandy Stead had wanted to make a presentation, but she wasn't fully prepared, so she's going to come back next month. or the next workshop, I think. And basically, she wanted to discuss maintenance and second RFP for additional trees. She's done an inventory for the remaining trees, and she wants to make sure that the village applies for grants, because apparently there's grants available, and they may not have been applied for last year, and they should be applied for. And apparently John Wicks will be sending Sandy some grant information as soon as it's published. And she wanted to talk, again, this is for next month, she's going to talk about the tree removal law, a discussion regarding RFP for phase 2 of village trees, including pruning and maintenance, and applying for grants for upcoming RFPs and ongoing tree projects. So those are the things that Sandy would like to discuss next month. Again, she was not prepared to discuss currently because she doesn't have the information on the grants, but apparently there's several grants available that the village should seek out that involve the trees.
Okay, thank you. Any further? Discussion on reopening Village Hall. Do we have any questions or concerns on reopening Village Hall? I know I spoke with Trustee Corrigan recently about the reopening and the progress we've been making. So it looks like I would like to reopen the Village Hall on either a full opening or on as an appointment opening, as Trustee Corrigan made a recommendation to. I think that would be a good approach to take on reopening with an appointment, call ahead, and then manage it from there to a full reopening. Does anyone have any questions or concerns?
I agree with the appointment concept. I think that's a very good way to sort of dip our toes in the water
Okay.
and limit
Yeah,
the
that
number
sounds
of
fine.
people.
And I'm sorry, what was that, Steve?
I was just saying that would also limit the number of people at one time, because if they have an appointment, we don't duplicate, someone's at 2 o'clock, someone different at 2:30, not the same, not 5 people at 2 o'clock. I'm sorry, I'm done.
Gotcha. Okay.
Paul was talking and I didn't mean to overstep him. I'm sorry.
No. All I said was that sounds fine to me.
Okay. Charles?
Good.
Good. Joe, any further on that, on the by appointment?
No, I think it'll be more comfortable for the employees, and, it just would also make it easier for the residents to be able to schedule time to go in.
Yes. Okay. So that's the way we're going to proceed. I'll start working on that tomorrow, and then we'll provide an update at the regular meeting.
On a related note to that, I'm sure there's no plan now to resume our meetings in person, but Steve had brought up an issue about the Zoom.
Well, the governor's orders usually get renewed. They should be being renewed soon, Mr. Magrino. I believe it's.
Yeah, if I could jump in, I for some reason, they just do that order to allow these types of meetings every 30 days, which presents municipalities a problem we're facing. We already have a Zoom meeting scheduled outside the 30 days.
Right.
I would, without a doubt, they are going to continue that. I've actually, spoken with some folks up in Albany and asked, can you just have them extended till December 31st, just so everybody, can kind of not have to address this every time, because many municipalities are. So it shows you my influence up in Albany, that falling on deaf ears. So.
Well, you have a lot of influence here, so that's all that matters.
Well, I guess that's true. That's true. But it's safe to assume that, for the foreseeable future, the Zoom meetings will be authorized. But, I expect, I think it's up, maybe, frankly, I don't even follow the dates. I think it's up the 3rd or the 4th.
3rd or the 4th, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure on the 2nd or 3rd, we'll get another executive order extending it. Maybe it's the 31st.
If the board so chooses, we can convene in person. Is that correct?
The board may convene in person, excuse me, if you wish, subject to occupancy limitations and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So at one point, the board couldn't. Now and could not have public hearings.
Right.
That has been, that's no longer the case.
Well,
or you could do the Zoom meeting.
I actually haven't heard any residents complaining about the Zoom. I actually think they're more engaged.
Yes, definitely. I think we've had far more people get involved in our meetings. especially a meeting a few months ago. I think, what was it? We had 300 people at one point logging in. It was fantastic. That's, to me, that's democracy.
So would the board want to continue with the Zoom meetings now for the next meeting?
I would.
I'd
Yeah.
prefer.
Yes?
Yeah, until we shouldn't be, of course, and until some of the residents are antsy and they want to, and they express that they want to have in-person meetings.
And
I think it's driven by two things. It's the need of the public, and it's the comfort of the board, and what we're being directed by the CDC.
Yes.
Three things. I counted wrong. Sorry.
Okay. So,
And I've also mentioned previously, and I still feel this way, even when we eventually are able to resume in-person meetings safely, I think that we should include a Zoom component if it's legal to do so. I think that that would be very helpful to the public, because some people want to attend a meeting, but for whatever reason, maybe they're shut in, maybe they're sick, whatever the case may be, this is an opportunity for the public to be involved even when they can't leave their home.
okay. All right. Anyone else on the meetings? No. What about the reopening of the community center and the Leo Leiden Center? No? Okay. I see you shaking your head.
I would like a little more foreplan on that and see what's going on, and kind of understanding what the thought is and who's going to manage it.
Okay.
You know, we're doing okay outside. You know, I
sure.
understand fall's coming, but you know, it's also flu season.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I think it's something we can discuss. We would need a little more detail on how we
Yeah.
would go about doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
I think it's better, you know, you're right, it's not cold now, but it will be cold soon. It's better to be talking about this in advance as best we can.
Yeah, so that's what I would like to do, is have that plan put in place, how we're going to manage it, how, you know, and it's going to go back to the CDC guidelines, the same thing with the social distancing, the hand sanitizer, you know, and the disinfectant, the wipe downs and all that. They have to load the capacity.
Right.
So we'll keep all of that in mind, but, you know, to put it out there, to start thinking about it, we'll do that now.
Yeah.
And Ed, I'd be happy to work with you on the inside.
Mhm.
You know, meaning inside village, community center, and you know, and Leiden.
Yes.
So
Okay, thank you. Okay, is there any other business to come before the board? No? Motion to close the meeting.
Motion.
motion.
Trustee Alpert, seconded by Trustee Corrigan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Have a good night. Thanks for attending.
Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
I know.